Welcome to audio version of Shirebrook 247 article titled 100 Days of the New/Old Shirebrook Town Council. Chapter Introduction. 1st April is commonly known as April Fool's Day, but this year it was also the 100-day anniversary of the historic first ever co-option in Shirebrook Town Council's history. Isn't that ironic? There is a political tradition in many countries that the opposition and journalists give newly elected politicians 100 days apiece, so they can introduce their first changes and policies undisturbed. I don't subscribe to that tradition. In my opinion, scrutiny and oversight should be vigilant and constant, from election day to election day. For bloggers and journalists, every day should be open season for stupidity, corruption, and nepotism. Chapter Quick Recap. For those who don't follow local politics but want to know what happened, a quick recap. 2025 was a turbulent time for Shirebrook Town Council. The Labour Party, embroiled in several scandals and hiding from the anger of residents behind closed doors, finally cracked. Chris Kane was first to go, and I like to think he was forced out when Labour finally realized I was right about the pellet scandal. They looked at the exploding cost of pellet deliveries and pushed him out the door. Shortly after Kane, the second key figure in the Labour operation fell. I won't name him here. His resignation triggered something. Those who had sat on STC for decades, suddenly leaderless, began resigning one after another. Newly elected Labour councillors followed. Most likely they had reached the same conclusion I had years earlier. STC was a cesspool of nepotism, shady deals and corruption, teetering on the edge of collapse. In the end, more than 9 Labour elected councillors left prematurely. One died in office, though not before a resignation letter purportedly submitted on his behalf was presented to the council. The letter was accepted by majority vote, though not without some dissent. So many resignations broke STC completely. There were not enough councillors left to conduct normal business. For a brief period, Shirebrook Town Council effectively ceased to exist. Bolsover District Council had to step in to save the day. Chapter. I warned about it. Many years ago, I wrote an article titled Shirebrook in Crisis. You can read it and judge for yourself how accurately I predicted the mechanism of Labour's fall. Link to this article in the description of this movie. When I wrote that article, I could see the writing on the wall. Old Labour was incapable of change. The same people, doing the same things year after year, with less and less enthusiasm and energy. Too old, too tired, and too focused on holding on to power and pushing away newcomers to do anything of value. The council was dominated by people in their 80s and 90s who voted however the party enforcers told them to. Every scandal swept under the carpet, every mistake covered up, every tax rise squandered. I knew it would end in catastrophe, but no one listened. Or they listened and ignored it out of spite. Either way, it all fell apart, and it is still falling. The process is not done yet. The majority of current STC councillors are newly co-opted. Those who won their seats in 2023 are now in the minority. Labour still holds power, but only with the support of Shirebrook together. Now you know everything. Now you are ready to look at the last 100 days with me and judge for yourself. Has the change of councillors changed anything about how STC actually behaves as a political decision-making body? Chapter. So what changed and what didn't? Everything below is, of course, my personal opinion. Let's start with what has changed for the better. And yes, there are some genuine positives, so bear with me. Then we will look at what has stayed exactly the same. And finally, and this is where it gets uncomfortable, we will look at what has actually gotten worse. Chapter, Change for the Better. I found only 3 items here. I genuinely hoped for more, but my brain simply cannot find anything else. Perhaps I am too close to it, too biased. Perhaps there is nothing more. Perhaps there will be more in the coming months. Feel free to educate me in the comments on Facebook. But for now, 3 positive changes, in my opinion. First change for the better, increased frequency of STC meetings. In the old days, Labour would meet in the back room of some shady establishment where the leader would tell the group what they would do. And then they would file into the STC chamber and rubber stamp every decision already made behind closed doors. Brainless followers dutifully raised their hands every time the comrade said now. It probably ran like that for decades. I witnessed it in 2021 to 2023. Complicated issues solved with one sentence from the big one and his lapdog. Vote, sorted, moving on. Second change for the better. Publicly acknowledging that STC is in serious financial difficulty. I have been attending STC meetings since 2019. In January 2026, Councillor Andrew Stevens did something that would previously have been unthinkable. He stated openly and publicly that the town's finances are in a poor state, that the town is running a deficit. At the time of writing, I cannot say what political affiliation Councillor Andrew Stevens has declared. He is one of those who has not yet responded to my email on the subject. Nevertheless, credit where it is due. He is the first councillor sitting at the top of STC to admit openly, STC is broke. Third change for the better. STC finally has a functioning social media presence. Welcome to the 21st century, Shirebrook Town Council. Fourth change for the better, the Market Subcommittee. New councillors finally recognized that the town's market square is an asset worth developing and decided to focus attention on it. That is a genuine change for the better, and credit where it is due. Chapter: No change. Now for what has not changed, what councillors have left untouched, despite the increased intensity of their work. First, crime prevention. I proposed creating a dedicated crime prevention committee. The new STC decided to ignore the issue entirely. The STC liaison for Safe Neighborhood is a 93-year-old man. Police flagged concerns about the CCTV system, yet there was not a single moment of discussion about crime prevention on any full council meeting I attended in 2026. Meanwhile, Shirebrook remains in the top 10 most crime-ridden towns in Derbyshire, while spending over £400,000 on leisure, so nothing changed. Second, political transparency. The increased frequency of meetings has been met with an increased number of exempt meetings. Once again, a Labour-dominated council is trying to hide everything from residents, and the opposition goes along with it like sheep. On the subject of opposition, I would encourage anyone interested to compare the words personal and personnel in the Local Government Act, 1972. These are not the same word, and they do not mean the same thing. Schedule 12A of that act, which governs when councils can legitimately exclude the public, uses the word personal, meaning information relating to a specific individual. It does not give councils a blank check to hide anything they label as personnel matters. Furthermore, both the Local Government Act 1972 and the Localism Act 2011 start from the same principle. The default position must always be disclosure. Withholding information from the public requires specific legal justification, not convenience, not embarrassment, not political self-interest. I suspect I am the only representative of the opposition who has read either of those pieces of legislation in full. My brain almost melted, but I went through both acts and made notes. Perhaps one day residents will vote me back onto STC, so I can demonstrate how to speak openly about the things that those in power would prefer to keep behind closed doors. Let me be clear, STC is not MI6. Everything paid for by the taxpayer is legally open for discussion, within defined limits, yes, but open nonetheless. You just need to know how. I have that knowledge, and I believe that is precisely why Labour votes against me in every round of co-option. The law is my armor. Freedom of speech is my sword. Following the procedures is my strategy. That is why Labour is scared of me. Not because I am some kind of evil man. They are scared of me for precisely the opposite reason. I am one of those who are brave enough to fight for what is right, even when the fight gets uncomfortable, borderline dangerous. Chris Kane violent outburst in Chamber of STC. Third, the leisure center deficit. A chronic, ongoing problem with no resolution and no apparent will to discuss the root cause, the net zero deals and overblown staff costs. Fourth, meeting minutes. STC held 13 meetings in the first 3 months of 2026, yet only 4 sets of minutes have been published. I understand that some minutes can only be published after being approved at a subsequent meeting, but when you analyze the meeting calendar, something is clearly missing. There should be significantly more minutes available. Fifth, the council chair ignoring emails. The new chair personally asked me for copies of FAO. I requests that the town clerk had ignored throughout 2025. and there were quite a few of them. I spent hours preparing the documents and sent them, and the new Labor Party chair of STC ignored them entirely. No reply, no acknowledgement of receipt. Nothing. Literally nothing. It feels like the Chris Kane days all over again. A small aside. I anticipated that the Labor chair would play deaf, so I sent copies to the vice chair as well. Councillor Andrew Stevens confirmed receipt of his copy. Labor Party Councillor Dale Smith. Silence. Same pattern as every previous Labor chair. No change. 6th. Ever-growing council tax. 11 rises in 12 years, and the new council has added another increase of over 3%. The pattern is unbroken. Labor reaches deeper into your pocket, while services and the town itself do not improve. 7th. Uncontrolled spending on shows and entertainment. STC has run a deficit for 2 consecutive years, yet no events have been canceled and no savings introduced. We are going down, sinking, but the orchestra plays on. Entertainment is Labor's answer to everything. 8th. The pellet audit. Delivery costs increased by 145%, and I personally offered to fund an independent audit. Let me write that again, in capital letters. I offered to cover the cost of a forensic audit, and Labor won't even talk about it. How does that smell to you? All good, or is something rotting underneath? Every previous Labor administration refused to engage in any discussion about the net zero contracts. This administration is doing exactly the same. Chapter: Changes for worse. Even if you can overlook the things that haven't changed, the fact that several issues have actually gotten worse should alarm you. This is the darkest part of my analysis. First, the Leisure Center wall crack. I have no idea what STC is discussing behind closed doors in exempt meetings, but if this issue is left unaddressed, it could end in real disaster. We need transparency and urgent action on this matter, now. Second, the second round of co-option. The process was marred by controversy. STC broke its own co-option policy. Councillor Michael Yates changed the rules mid-process in breach of the policy itself. This is Labor at its finest. Yates was elected under one set of rules, so when others tried to follow the same path, the rules were simply changed to make it harder. That is the Labor way. One standard for themselves, another for everyone else. Two-tier Yates. Third, procedural integrity. The most recent Personnel Committee summons was signed by Councillor Martin Barber instead of the proper officer. I have a copy of that summons. I do not know whether that meeting went ahead, but if it did, it was unlawful. Full stop. I know readers might skim past this point. Please don't. This is a major issue. Major. Under Standing Order 15A and 15B(I) of STC's own standing orders, it is the proper officer, the clerk, or a nominated staff member who is required to serve a signed summons on councillors before any meeting, not a councillor, not a committee chairman, the proper officer. Furthermore, Standing Order 25A is equally clear. Unless authorized by a resolution, no councillor shall issue orders, instructions, or directions. A summons is precisely that, an instruction to attend. Councillor Martin Barber signed that summons as committee chairman. That is not his role. That is not his legal authority. Someone on STC went along with it, knowingly or otherwise. Either way, the result is the same. A potentially unlawful meeting of a committee that handles the most sensitive personnel matters in the council. Councillor Barber, I say this not as an insult, but as a warning. Read the legislation before you go any further down this road. This document exists, it is dated, it is signed, and it will be used. Councillors ignoring basic legal requirements is not a minor procedural slip. It is a warning sign of much bigger problems to come. A final observation on that agenda. Item P/26/018 reads, to review formal complaint regarding residents' social media post/page. I invite you to read that slowly. A personnel committee, whose entire purpose is staff and employment matters, scheduled a discussion about a resident's social media page in a fully exempt meeting behind closed doors, with the press and public excluded. That sounds like something straight out of communist regime Politburo. I do not know who that resident is. I do not know what social media page is being discussed, but I do not need to know. The question is not who. The question is, What authority does a personnel committee have to discuss any resident's social media activity? The answer is none. Zero. It is outside their remit entirely. Whatever was discussed in that room, it was discussed in secret, in the wrong committee, summoned unlawfully. Residents of Shirebrook should ask themselves, if they have nothing to hide, why are they hiding everything? Fourth, the town clerk. Jennifer Jeffrey's non-compliance with her legal obligations remains an ongoing and unresolved issue. FOI requests ignored, minutes publication delayed, and now a summons signed by a counselor rather than the proper officer. On top of that, she has chosen to work from home, while counselors have made clear they want her present in the chamber. But there is more. As responsible financial officer, her finance reports have been riddled with errors. She withheld information originating from the MP's office. She concealed the fact that STC's loan from Bolsover District Council had been extended, old case but still evidence of wrongdoing. All of this is documented. I wrote a full article about her conduct, link in the description. The list of concerns is long. It is evidenced, and it is growing. In my view, STC urgently needs to address the question of whether its current clerk is capable of fulfilling the role that taxpayers are funding. Chapter Epilogue. My prediction. In 2021, I predicted that Labor's grip on Shirebrook Town Council would end in collapse. Nobody listened. I was right. Now I have another prediction. Shirebrook Town Council is healing, but too slowly to see any real difference yet. For now, all changes are cosmetic and superficial, made for publicity rather than substance. Deep structural problems remain hidden behind the exempt clause or are simply never discussed. Labor still holds power, and they have a plan. They know they will lose the next election, so they intend to use their inside knowledge of those problems to counterattack afterwards. They will use the chaos they created to undermine whoever tries to fix it with the harsh, decisive decisions that are needed. They will deploy every tool available: propaganda paper, unions, family networks, NGOs, and companies that benefited from labor at power for years to impede genuine reform of STC. And you know what? They will lose. If those who genuinely want to improve this town win in 2027, we will see massive improvement by 2030, and after that, Shirebrook will never go back to labor. This time, my prediction is an optimistic one. Whether it comes true is in your hands, at the ballot box. Stay home or vote Labor, and you will get more of the same. Vote for new people, for those who want to reform how STC operates, and Shirebrook will be transformed into a leader of the region. Good luck, Shirebrook. It is all in your hands. We are just 397 days away from full local elections in Shirebrook. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to be notified about every new clip from Shirebrook 247.